Good day everyone. Today, I will discuss Chapter 3 entitled Ethics and Corporate Social Responsibility from the book Essentials of Management by Andrew J. Dubrin. Our learning objectives are the following. 1. Identify the philosophical principles behind business ethics. 2. Explain how values relate to ethics. 3. Identify factors contributing to lax ethics and common ethical temptations and violations. 4. Apply a guide to ethical decision making. 5. Describe the stakeholder viewpoint of social responsibility and corporate social performance. 6. Present an overview of corporate social responsibility initiatives. 7. Describe social responsibility initiatives aimed specifically at building a sustainable environment. 8. Summarize how managers can create an environment that fosters ethically and socially responsible behavior and the benefits of such activity. Business ethics. Understanding and practicing good business ethics is an important part of a manager's job. Ethics is the study of moral obligation or separating right from wrong. Although many unethical acts are illegal, others are legal and issues of legality vary by nation. An example of an illegal, unethical act in the United States is giving a government official a kickback for placing a contract with a specific firm. An example of an unethical yet legal practice is making companies more profitable by limiting their pension plans. One of the many reasons ethics are important is that customers, suppliers, and employees prefer to deal with ethical companies. A useful perspective in understanding business ethics emphasizes moral intensity, or the magnitude of an unethical act. When an ethical act is not of large consequence, a person might behave unethically without much thought. However, if the act is of large consequence, the person might refrain from unethical or illegal behavior. Philosophical principles underlying business ethics. A standard way of understanding ethical decision-making is to know the philosophical basis for making these decisions. When attempting to decide what is right and wrong, managerial workers can focus on first, consequences, second, duties, obligations, and principles, or third, integrity. First principle, focus on the consequences and pragmatism. When attempting to decide what is right or wrong, people can sometimes focus on the consequences of their decisions or actions. According to this criterion, if no one gets hurt, the decision is ethical. Focusing on consequences often referred to as utilitarianism. The decision maker is concerned with the utility of the decision. What really counts is the net balance of good consequences versus bad. Second principles. Focus on the rights of individuals, deontology. Another approach to making an ethical decision is to examine one's duties in making the decision. The theories underlying this approach are referred to as deontology, from the Greek word deon or duty. Deontology also refers to moral philosophies that centers on the rights of individuals and the intentions associated with a particular behavior. A fundamental idea of deontology is that equal respect must be given to all persons. The deontological approach is based on universal principles based on moral philosophies such as honesty, fairness, justice, and respect for persons and property. Third principles focus on integrity, virtue ethics. The third criterion for determining the ethics of behavior focuses on the character of the person involved in the decision or action. If the person in question has good character and genuine motivation and intentions, he or she is behaving ethically. The ingredients making up character will often include the two other ethical criteria. One might judge a person to have good character if she or he follows the right principles and respect the rights of others. Values and ethics. Values are closely related to ethics. Values can be considered clear statements of what is critically important. Ethics become the vehicle for converting values into actions or doing the right thing. For example, a clear environment is a value, whereas not littering is practicing ethics. A person's values also influence which kind of behaviors he or she believes are ethical. An executive who strongly values profits may not find it unethical to raise prices more than is needed to cover additional costs. Values are important because the right values can lead to competitive advantage. An example of winning value is building relationships with customers. The concept of ethically centered management helps put some teeth into an abstract definition of how values relate to ethics. Ethically centered management emphasizes that the high quality of an end product takes precedence over its scheduled completion. At the same time, it sets high quality standards for dealing with employees and managing production. The concept of ethically centered management is helpful in understanding what went wrong in many product recalls. Sources of unethical decisions and behavior. Ethical problems remain a major concern in the workplace. Despite a heightened emphasis on business ethics following scandals earlier this decade, a significant number of employees say they still witness questionable workplace behavior. Many factors contribute to these types of unethical behavior. A team of researchers pulled together 30 years of research to conclude that drivers of unethical behavior fall into characteristics of the following: A. Individual, B. Moral issue facing the persons, and C. Organizational environment. Here, we will present several of the possibilities under each source of unethical decisions and behavior. First source: individual characteristics. Self-interest continues to be a factor that influences ethics, often taking the form of greed and gluttony or the desire to maximize self-gain at the expense of others. Another individual driver of unethical behavior is unconscious bias that lead us to behave in unjust ways toward others. Rationalization or making up a good excuse for poor ethics. Job dissatisfaction can also contribute to unethical behavior. Second source: the nature of moral issue. Moral intensity of the issue is a driver of unethical behavior. Many people are willing to behave unethically when the issue does not appear serious. Another issue-related driver of unethical behavior is moral laxity, a slippage in moral behavior because other issues seem more important at the time. The implication is that the business person who behaves unethically has not carefully planned the immoral behavior but lets it occur by not exercising good judgment. For example, many deaths from fires in nightclubs result from management not paying careful attention to fire regulations, calling for fireproofing, and the ability of adequate escape exits. Third source: the ethical climate in the organization. Another major contributor to unethical behavior is an organizational atmosphere that condones such behavior. Unethical behavior is often triggered by pressure from higher management to achieve goals. Too much emphasis on meeting financial targets can push workers toward meeting those targets in questionable ways. Unethical decision or behavior can sometimes stem from a combination of individual, issue-related, and organizational factors. Ethical temptations and violations. Certain ethical mistakes, including illegal actions, occur in the workplace. Familiarizing oneself with these behaviors can be helpful in managing the ethical behavior of others as well as monitoring one's own behavior. A list of commonly found ethical temptations and violations, including criminal acts, follows. 1. Stealing from employers and customers. 2. Illegal copying software. 3. Treating people unfairly. 4. Sexual harassment. 5. Conflict of interest. 6. Accepting kickbacks and bribe for doing business in another company. 7. Divulging confidential information. 8. Misuse of corporate resources. 9. Extracting extraordinary compensation from the organization. 10. Corporate espionage. 11. Poor cyber ethics. A guide to ethical decision making. A practical way of improving ethical decision making is to run contemplated decisions through an ethics test when any doubt exists. The ethics test presented next is used at the Center for Business Ethics at Bentley College as part of corporate training programs. Decision makers are taught to ask themselves these things. 1. Is it right? This question is based on the deontological theory of ethics, which says that there are certain universally accepted guiding principles of rightness and wrongness. For example, thou shalt not steal. 2. Is it fair? This question is based on the deontological theory of justice, implying that certain actions are inherently just or unjust. For example, it is unjust to fire a performing employee to make room for a less competent person who is a personal friend. 3. Who gets hurt? This question is based on the utilitarian notion of attempting to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. 4. Would you be comfortable if the details of your decision were reported on the front page of your local newspaper, on a popular website or blog, or through your company's email system? This question is based on the universalist principle of disclosure. 5. Would you tell your child or your young relative to do it? This question is based on the deontological principle of reversibility, referring to reversing who carries out the decision. 6. How does it smell? This question is based on the person's intuition and common sense. For example, Andrew paying many accounts payable by a few dollars to save money would smell bad to a sensible person. Corporate social responsibility. Many people believe that firms have an obligation to be concerned about outside groups affected by an organization. Corporate social responsibility is the idea that firms have obligations to society beyond their economic obligations to owners or stockholders, and also beyond those prescribed by law or contract. Corporate social responsibility has three components. First, the cognitive, which implies thinking about the organization's relationships with its parties at interest. Also included here is the firm's rationale for engaging in specific activities that might have an impact on the key relationship. Second is the linguistic component, which involves explaining the organization's reasons for engaging in certain activities and how it goes about sharing these explanations with others. The corporate communications or public relations group assists the linguistic component. Third, the cognitive component, which involves what the firm actually does, along with the commitment and consistency it shows in conducting its acts of social responsibility. Stockholder versus stakeholder viewpoints. The stockholder viewpoint of social responsibility is the traditional perspective. It holds that business firms are responsible only to their owners and stockholders. The job of managers is therefore to satisfy the financial interests of the stockholders. By so doing, says that stockholder view, the interests of society will be served in the long run. Socially responsible acts ultimately result in the poor sales. According to the stockholder viewpoint, corporate social responsibility is a byproduct of profit seeking. The stakeholder viewpoint of social responsibility contends that firms must hold themselves responsible for the quality of life of the many groups affected by the firm's actions. These interested parties or stakeholders include groups within the firm's general environment, internal and external stakeholders. The circle is the organization. The internal stakeholders within the organization are owners, stakeholders, employees, and board of directors, while external stakeholders outside the organizations are consumers, suppliers, creditors, labor unions, competitors, special interest groups, consumers groups, government agency, and financial institutions. Corporate social performance is the extent to which a firm responds to the demands of its stakeholders to behave in a socially responsible manner. After stakeholders have been satisfied with the reporting of financial information, they may turn their attention to the behavior of the corporation as a good citizens in the community. One way of measuring social performance is to analyze the company's annual report in search of relevant statistical information. For example, you might look for data about contributions to charities, arts, education, and anti-pollution efforts. Corporate social responsibility initiatives. Creating opportunities for a diverse workforce, as described in Chapter 2, is an important social responsibility initiative. Here, we describe positive corporate responses to other important social issues. A firm that takes initiatives in these areas can be considered socially responsible. The 5 social responsibility initiatives are: 1. Philanthropy, 2. Work-life programs, 3. Community redevelopment projects, 4. Acceptance of whistleblowers, 5. Compassionate downsizing. First initiative, philanthropy. A standard approach to social responsibility is to donate money to charity and various other causes. Second initiatives, work-life programs. The intent of work-life program is to help employees to lead a more balanced life and be more satisfied and productive on the job. Example is flex time or flexible work schedules. Third initiatives, community redevelopment projects. Business firms invest in resources in helping rebuild distressed communities. A specific goal is to replace a crime-ridden development with a new housing that is associated with less crime and more community pride. Fourth initiatives, acceptance of whistleblowers. A whistleblower is an employee who discloses organizational wrongdoing to parties who can take action. Only an organization with a strong social conscience would embrace employees who inform the public about its misdeeds. Fifth initiatives, compassionate downsizing. Downsizing is the slimming down of operations to focus resources and boost profits or decrease expenses. Compassionate downsizing would include the following. First, redevelopment as many workers as possible by placing them in full-time or temporary jobs throughout the organization, where their skills and personality fits. Second, sending workers in temporary assignment to help other company in need of an expanded workforce. Third, reduce the pay of all workers by a small amount rather than have a layoff. Fourth, provide outplacement services to laid-off employees. Fifth, provide financial and emotional support to the downsized worker. Example, severance pay, extended health benefits, financial assistance. Environmental protection. A major corporate thrust toward ethical and socially responsible behavior calls for business firms and not-for-profit organizations to go green, to make a deliberate attempt to create a sustainable environment. Go Green approach. Going green is an approach to defining and creating processes that are 1. Environmentally friendly, 2. Economically viable, and 3. Pragmatic in the long term. Environmentally friendly, reducing the generation of population at its source and minimizing life risk to humans, animals, plants, and the planet. Economically viable, energy savings, gaining government subsidies, avoiding penalties. Pragmatic, affects the global or local environment, community, society, or economy by means of practical and realistic approach rather than seeking impossible deals. Characteristics of sustainability. So as you can see in this video, there is 3 circles interacting to each other: the environmental, economic, and pragmatic. These 3 processes of Dubrin approach must be observed to achieve our goals to a safer place to live for a do business. People often disagree vehemently about whether global warming exists, but almost nobody disagrees that a clean, safe environment is desirable. Here, we highlight 7 illustrative approaches to environmental protection. You will notice that many of the approaches to being green overlap and support others. Illustrative approach to environmental protection. 1. Commit to lowering carbon dioxide and other hazardous emissions. 2. Develop a green supply chain. 3. Make sustainability and eco-friendly policies part of your business plan. 4. Implement a 4-day work week. 5. Manufacture and sell products made with recycled materials. 6. Invest heavily in recycling. 7. Plant rooftop garden on your office building or factory. Creating an ethical and socially responsible workplace. Establishing an ethical and socially responsible workplace is not simply a matter of luck and common sense. Top-level managers, assisted by other managers and professionals, can develop strategies and programs to enhance ethical and socially responsible attitudes and behavior. We turn now to a description of several of these initiatives. First, formal mechanisms for monitoring ethics. Large organizations frequently set up ethics committee to help ensure ethical and socially responsible behavior. The committee establishes policies about ethics and social responsibility and may conduct an ethics audit of the firm's activities. Second, written organizational codes of conduct. These codes require people to conduct themselves with integrity and candor. Third, widespread communication about ethics and social responsibility. Fourth, leadership by example and ethical role models. A high-powered approach to enhancing ethics and social responsibility is for members of top management to model the behavior. Fifth, encouragement of confrontation about ethical deviations. Sixth, training programs in ethics and social responsibility. Benefits derived from ethics and social responsibility. Highly ethical behavior and socially responsible acts are not always free. Initiatives such as work-life programs and community redevelopment may not have an immediate return on investment. Here, we look at evidence and opinions about the advantages of ethics and social responsibility. Profits and social responsibility sometimes have a reciprocal influence on each other. More profitable firms can better afford to invest in social responsibility initiatives, and these initiatives in turn lead to more profits. The researchers concluded that the relationship between social and financial performance may be a virtuous circle, meaning that corporate social performance and corporate financial performance feed and reinforce each other. Another potential benefit of corporate social responsibility is enhanced organizational efficiency. Green practices such as recycling, reusing, and reducing waste can reduce costs. Being ethical also helps avoid huge fines for unethical behavior, including charges of discrimination and class action lawsuits because of improper financial reporting. Charges of age discrimination and sex discrimination are the two leading sources of lawsuits against companies. Finally, an organization with a strong reputation for social responsibility will attract people who want to work for the firm. In 2017, Ayman is selected top 10 companies to work for in the Philippines. 1. San Miguel Corporation, 2. Nestle Philippines, 3. Accenture Philippines, 4. Video Unibank, 5. Ayala Corporation, 6. Coca-Cola FEMSA Corporation, 7. SM Investment Corporation, 8. Google Philippines, 9. Procter & Gamble Philippines, 10. ABS-CBN Corporation. We from the Philippine National Police also conduct community relation projects in order to enhance the relationship of the police to the community, such as the following.